Regular meeting number 25 will now come to order. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Councilmember Page, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would now like to ask for a moment of silence for Stephen Eric DeSario. He's a police chief for Kirkersville, who was killed this weekend. Thank you. Monsignor Cody, would you please lead us in prayer?
Let us pray. O good and gracious God, bestow your blessings on the members of Columbus City Council as they meet in session this evening. We're grateful for the temperate weather and for the beauty of the natural world as it awakens after a long winter. We realize, Lord, that there are many challenges that confront our council and indeed all of us on a local and national level. We ask for your wisdom and the grace of discernment as the issues that face us are addressed. Most of all, Lord, inspire us to be hopeful that our faith in you and our faith in the goodwill of our citizens will find solutions to problems and better ways forward for all of us. May our faith inspire us, our hope strengthen us, and our love enrich and ennoble the lives of those we serve. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Monsignor Cody. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. This week's communications received by the City Clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the City Bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read in the record?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Are there any resolutions by members of council? Councilmember Elizabeth Brown?
Yes, President Pro Tem, thank you. As I present this resolution, I'd like to invite up Cindy Flaherty, the Secretary of the Ohio Healthy Homes Network Board. I have tonight Resolution 0150X-2017 to oppose provisions added to Ohio House Bill 49, which is the main operating budget of the 132nd General Assembly, which restrict Columbus and other cities' ability to inspect and abate lead contamination in homes, and to encourage the Ohio Senate to remove these provisions. This resolution is in response to an amendment amendment to the budget, which the Ohio House of Representatives passed on May 2nd, and the Ohio Senate is now considering. The amendment grants the Ohio Department of Health, the State Department of Health, the sole authority to regulate the inspection, enforcement, and abatement of lead-based paint in Ohio. This is concerning because lead-based paint is the primary source for lead poisoning in young children. Lead poisoning can cause learning disabilities, behavioral problems, and in severe cases, seizures, coma, and death. Children living in older homes and in low-income neighborhoods are at the greatest risk of being exposed to lead contamination from paint. State policy currently only reacts to instances of lead poisoning after it has been discovered in a home. If Columbus were forced to abide by this statewide policy through the enactment of this amendment, it would severely limit our ability to proactively inspect and abate lead contamination in homes. The ability to be proactive is especially important given that lead poisoning often has no obvious symptoms and goes unrecognized. Cities throughout Ohio would be placed in the same position, and current lead abatement programs in cities like Cleveland and Toledo would be jeopardized. The ability for cities to proactively act would also be jeopardized. According to the Centers for Disease Control, there are 24 million homes in the United States with elevated levels of lead contamination. Of those, more than 4 million have young children living in them. The effort to prevent lead poisoning in Ohio's children through the inspection and abatement of these older homes should be a collaborative effort which utilizes all available assets. Limiting a city's ability to protect its residents from lead contamination through arbitrary restrictions and needless statewide control unnecessarily exposes children to the risks of lead poisoning. That's why we are considering this resolution today to encourage the Ohio Senate to remove these harmful provisions from the state budget. A copy of this resolution, if passed, will be sent to members of the Ohio Senate. Ms. Cindy Flaherty, who's joined us, is also the former director of the Ohio Housing Finance Agency's home ownership programs and is currently a housing consultant and has held many other positions in the housing field in her career. Thank you for joining us in council today and for shedding additional light on the problems with this amendment to the state budget.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown, and thank you, members of City Council, for this opportunity to speak this evening. I am especially pleased that you're considering this resolution, which we think is very important. The Ohio Healthy Homes Network does oppose the state budget amendment that was just described, which would preempt local government's authority to regulate lead-based paint, and particularly to prevent this hazard, which is permanently damaging to children. Limiting control to having only the state regulate lead would undermine the very tools that are needed in order to prevent lead poisoning in children, and that tool is code enforcement. Code enforcement is ultimately a local function, and we really won't see progress in prevention unless we have more code enforcement. Reducing lead exposure requires more diligent effort at both the state and the local level, and that's why Ohio Healthy Homes Network is supporting a state study committee to look at all of our laws regarding lead paint and lead exposure to children, and to update those so that we can be more compliant with federal programs and more proactive. But prevention through inspection and enforcement is really best handled at the local level, and prevention is the only way to keep children from being continually exposed. We have many instances where, because of a lack of enforcement, after a child is exposed, another child moves into the same unit and the situation continues. So we encourage adoption of this resolution, and we encourage you to continue to speak out about this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to add that this amendment also concerns me because the state is moving in this direction of uniformity, and Ohio is a very diverse state with different needs in different sized cities and towns, and this kind of amendment does not recognize the importance of local control and local authority over critical public health issues. There are high stakes here, and so that's additionally troubling. Are there any other comments from my colleagues before we consider? All right, thank you. Hearing none, I move for adoption.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. The resolution is adopted.
That's all I have tonight, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Mitchell Brown. Thank you. Councilmember Shannon Harden. Thank you. Councilmember Jiza Page.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. I do have one announcement this evening and 2 resolutions. For those of you who do not know, May is National Bike Month, and Bike to Work Day Columbus will be held this Friday, May 19th. You can join hundreds of riders by biking into downtown along one of several pre-planned routes where you can find online at www.columbus.gov/B2W 2017. That's Bike to Work 2017. And all the routes will end at Columbus City Hall at 8 a.m. for a celebration, including breakfast, recognition, and announcements. And I encourage all of you who are bike riders and those of you who are not, like me, to join on Bike to Work Day. And if I'm out there, you'll probably see me the last one in line, but it's okay. Just don't run me over. And then my 2 announcements, which I am very honored and happy to bring these resolutions before council this evening. They're both for 2 organizations that are doing a lot of work, and I call them fighters, specifically for women in our community, young women who are victims of sex trafficking, and then women who are suffering from breast cancer. And I would like to first call Brooke Pollard with Grace Haven up to the podium. And I have resolution 0145X-2017 to recognize Grace Haven in their commitment of going over the edge to end sex trafficking. And I'll let Brooke talk a little bit more about what it means to go over the edge. But Grace Haven is an organization that helps juvenile victims of sex trafficking, particularly in Central Ohio. Unfortunately, throughout our state, we have more than 1,100 youth victims of sex trafficking, and we have got to not only raise awareness of this issue, but do what we can as a community to stop these heinous acts against our youth. So I'd first like to move for adoption.
Second. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano. President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Resolution is adopted.
And now, Brooke, if you could speak briefly about Grace Haven and Over the Edge.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for inviting me here. I really appreciate it on behalf of Grace Haven. So we are just a small organization that operates here in Columbus, Ohio, where we locate children, juvenile victims of human sex trafficking, and we bring them into our care where we have a rehabilitative home and we do intensive therapy for about 6 to 12 months, or as long as their counties will allow them to stay with us. And our big fundraiser for this is Going Over the Edge. So that is June 15th and 16th. We're really excited about it. And what that is everybody who has ever wanted to rappel 19 stories can absolutely check that off their bucket list this year if they raise $1,000 for Grace Haven and for all the kids and all of their intensive therapy, because as you can imagine, it's pretty not cost effective to give a bunch of kids intensive therapy for about 12 months. So we do a big fundraiser June 15th and 16th where everybody has the opportunity to raise $1,000 and then they get to go over the edge of the PNC building. So and that's downtown on the corner of Broad and 4th.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Are there any additional comments? Well, I did go over the edge last year, and I was thoroughly frightened for about 20 minutes. But I would encourage those of you who are not interested in rappelling yourself, just again, raising awareness of this issue, to go out briefly. They will be out there June 16th, and just to cheer the rappellers on. They truly appreciate it as they are walking down the side of the building for 19 stories. And just imagine the fear that our youth have when they're experiencing sex trafficking. The fear that I experienced for 20 minutes didn't compare to, excuse me, a life that they have to live, being victims of such awful acts. So thank you, Brooke, for coming down. I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
And then my second resolution, I would like to ask April Vandervoort, President of the Board of Komen Columbus, and any of her guests to come down to the podium. We have Resolution 0148X-2017 to recognize the Komen Columbus Race for the Cure for celebrating 25 years of racing for cures in the community, exceptional fundraising, and groundbreaking breast cancer research. I would first like to move for adoption.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano. President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Resolution is adopted.
Thank you. And Ms. Vandervoort, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So thank you, Councilwoman Page and members of City Council. I'm really honored to be here on behalf of the board of Susan G. Komen Columbus to accept this proclamation. I want to thank you for that. You know, I'm often asked what Komen Columbus does, and I'd say the short answer to that is saving women's lives. And we are funding breakthrough research that allows us to find a cure, that will help us to find a cure, and funding local programs to really support those who are currently fighting breast cancer. So we have our upcoming race, which is our largest fundraiser of the year. And the dollars that we raise there at the Race for the Cure here in Columbus really allow us to invest in our mission, which is to save lives and end breast cancer forever. So we have, I'm happy to share with you that our city here in Columbus, we are home to the largest Race for the Cure in the country for the 3rd straight year. So it's a lot for all of us to be proud of. And we're actually the 2nd largest Race for the Cure in the world as well. And so our bragging rights don't really end there. We have the largest Race for the Cure team in the country, and that's L Brands. And so this year, L Brands will have over 10,000 race participants. And so that's the 7th year that they'll be the largest Race for the Cure in the country. And so we're really excited about that as well. So we feel so fortunate to live in such a charitable community here in Columbus, and that spirit really has enabled our Race for the Cure to grow. And so this year we're expecting in excess of 25,000 race participants in downtown Columbus in a sea of pink to really help us to celebrate our survivors and honor those who've lost their battle to breast cancer. And this year, as you mentioned, Councilwoman Page, we are celebrating a special milestone. So it is our 25th Race for the Cure. And we've come a long way since we first started with 800 participants to the 25,000 participants that we expect this year. And we're really one of the first major events in the city. And so I wanted to thank all of you, and I really wanted to thank the City of Columbus as well for the great support, wonderful support that has been shown to our race. And it is this weekend, so it's Saturday, May 20th. And we hope that we will see many of you there. And thank you once again for this honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vandervoort. Are there any other comments? Councilmember Cinziano.
Just very briefly, congratulations on the milestone, and really compliments to the event for highlighting the survivors and that family's impact. It's something that anyone that experiences is always very moving and touching, and really compliment the staff's ongoing dedication to highlight those survivors and their families. So thank you all for the past 25 years, and look forward to hopefully not 25 if we get the research where we need to be, but really compliment all that you've done and the impact it has for our community.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Michael Cinziano.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. I have one resolution to present this evening that will appear on our consent agenda. At this time, I'd like to invite Susan Kinney and Ed Lentz from the Columbus Landmarks Foundation to the podium. Founded in 1977 by a dedicated group of historic preservationists and local residents who are committed to preserving Columbus's architectural heritage, the Columbus Landmarks Foundation is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. And if you went to any of the meetings, everyone seems amazed it's been 40 years. And so really excited to recognize such an outstanding achievement and the ongoing growth of the organization. The foundation's grown their membership to include more than 700 individuals and organizations who remain devoted to promoting and preserving our city's landmarks and neighborhoods. For 4 decades now, they have played an integral role in educating community members and council members, encouraging responsible public and private sector enhancement of historic areas and structures, and promoting the highest standards in design and construction of new buildings and spaces to protect the future Columbus's architectural legacy. Before I turn it over to Ed and Susan, I don't know if any of my colleagues have any comments. Seeing none, the podium is yours, Ed.
I'll just be brief. Thank you so much, President Pro Tem Tyson, members of council. It's been a long journey, over 40 years. It began when Union Station was demolished in 1976, and our group came into being with just a few members that maybe Mr. Pfeiffer maybe remember back then. Mr. Dorian certainly would. In any case, we have grown now to be the largest preservation organization in Central Ohio, more than 800 members. And we are dedicated, as was mentioned, to the preservation of the built environment and the advocacy of good new design in our city. We look forward to another 40 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan and Ed. It is, again, my honor to present this resolution to you as, again, recognition for your dedication and work and the foundation's work.
Thank you. Are there any comments by elected officials or members of the members of the administration? The city auditor, city attorney, and there isn't anyone here from the municipal court. All right. Are there any requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent portion of the agenda? May we now have a motion to waive the titles of the 30-day legislation by the city clerk? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into record the ordinance numbers of the 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Finance Committee, ordinances 948, 967, 1160-2017. Health and Human Services Committee, ordinance 1162-2017. Public Service and Transportation Committee, resolution 132X-2017, and ordinance 1168-2017. Recreation and Parks Committee, ordinance 1015-2017. Technology Committee, ordinance 1098-2017. Public Utilities Committee, ordinances 1125 and 1178-2017. Judiciary and Court Administration Committee, ordinance 745-2017. And Zoning Committee, ordinances 267, 1222, 1223, and 1271-2017.
Thank you. The following ordinances appear on our agenda as consent actions. Will the clerk now read the ordinance numbers of each into the record?
Resolution of Expression 0149X-2017, Finance Committee, ordinances 1138, 1191, 1228, and 1233-2017. Health and Human Services Committee, ordinances 1075, 1122, 1167, and 1205-2017. Public Safety Committee, ordinances 947, 1076, 1089, and 1218-2017. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinance 1245-2017. Small and Minority Business Development Committee, resolution 146X-2017 and 147X-2017. Neighborhoods Committee, ordinance 1177-2017. Recreation and Parks Committee, ordinances 949, 957, 958, 1127, and 1203-2017. Housing Committee, ordinances 1209, 1210, 1211, 1216, 1217, 1220-2017. Technology Committee, ordinance 1024-2017. Public Utilities Committee, ordinance 1093-2017, and an appointment from the Mayor's Office numbered A0082-2017.
Thank you. We have two speaker slips for consent. The first is for 1217-2017. It's Mr. Nathaniel George Wilkins. And good evening, Mr. Wilkins. Welcome to Council Chambers. Again, please state your name and address for the record and any group you represent.
1612 Arlington Avenue, Mr. Nathaniel George Wilkins. I'm also the chairman of solely vacant property in North Linden area. I am really before this property of 1477 Arlington Avenue. Mind you that it has sit vacant for decades and time after time that the city have owned it. I need to know who's going to get this property and what will be done with it. This particular property has 10 showings at a time by the city of Columbus. Something real special about 1477 Arlington Avenue. It was built in 1900s, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. But again, I would love to, whoever gets this property, I would love to see it restored back to the original that it was before. Unfortunately, that it had a wrought iron staircase in this property. And again, whoever gets this property, I would like to see it back to reproductive use. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins, and certainly with Director Shoney, will you reach out to Mr. Wilkins? Thank you very much. The next speaker is Monty Grace, and she's speaking on ordinance 0949-2017 from Recreation and Parks. Good evening, Ms. Grace.
Good evening, Pro Tem Tyson and City Council members. First of all, I would like to thank you for the sidewalks in our area. They have been used so much. I'm very glad that we finally got the sidewalks because I never realized I had so many people in my neighborhood walking, riding, skating boards, and bikes along that area. Next, I would like to thank Ms. Page for all of her efforts, and to give our total approval for this particular part because it's to repair and to fix up Fairwood Park. And it has been neglected, and we really like to thank you all for putting forth the effort to get this park up to power so that the children will enjoy it. Are there any questions? No? Okay,
Thank you, Ms. Grace. May I have a motion for approval of these items designated as consent actions? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Consent agenda items are passed. We will now proceed with the second reading of 30-day tabled and emergency legislation. And the first committee is the Finance Committee, and I chair the Finance Committee. And the first is Resolution 0129X-2017, is to accept the Capital Improvements Program of 2017 through 2022 as described herein as a primary guide for the future improvements budget ordinances and to declare an emergency. I first move to take from the table. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. It's taken from the table. And, sorry, piece of paper. In this resolution, the City Council accepts the Capital Improvement Program for 2017 to 2022. This was the primary guide for the 2017 Capital Improvements budget. The CIP reflects the remaining priorities from the 2008 voted bond package and the 2013 voted bond package, as well as priorities identified in the 2016 voted bond package. And now I move for adoption. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Resolution is adopted. I have ordinance number 1124-2017. It is to adopt a capital improvements budget for the 12 months ending December 31 of 2017 or until such time as a new capital improvements budget is adopted, establishing a project budget for capital improvements requiring legislative authorization in 2017, and to repeal ordinance number 0960-2016 as amended and to declare an emergency. I first move to take it from the table. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. This ordinance establishes again the 2017 capital improvement budget in the amount of $861.4 million. This budget presented herein represents a plan for the expenditure of monies for 2017 for a variety of capital improvement projects. The new funding amount of the total budget is $542.7 million, but $359.9 million of this amount, or 63.3%, is supported by enterprise revenues and miscellaneous smaller revenues, such as our internal revenue, service funds, and federal and state funding sources, not the set-aside of the income tax. Of the CIB, $318.7 million represents carryover funding. Ultimately, the capital improvements budget helps communities to thrive by strengthening neighborhoods, fortifying our safety forces, and economic expansion. This capital budget will also allow the city to leverage state and federal dollars to support our capital projects. This capital budget was a joint effort between the administration and council. We held a hearing on the capital budget on May the 4th, which provided an opportunity for department directors to cover their projects included in the CIB, as well as council members offer their comments on their projects that they are supporting. Before we pass the budget, I'd like to offer Deputy Director Dan Giangardella an opportunity to make comments.
President Pro Tem Tyson, members of council, first of all, thank you for having this ordinance on the agenda this evening. It's truly a collaborative effort every time we go through one of these. This is probably, other than the operating budget, the second signature ordinance that the Finance Committee entertains each year. $861 million of great projects, and as the mayor says often, his three priorities of neighborhoods, neighborhoods, neighborhoods. So I want to thank council and council staff for working with us. I want to thank Mr. Dorian, who is always our partner in putting these packages together and these ordinances together. Certainly, my colleagues this evening, the directors and their fiscal staffs work very hard on putting these type of ordinances and eventually the budget together. Obviously, Mayor Ginther and his staff as well. Two people in particular in our finance staff, Rob Newman, who you all know is our debt coordinator, and one of his fine employees, Kyle Saverhart, are also very instrumental in this, and I want to thank them. Most importantly, I want to thank the voters of Columbus that obviously have given us the means to do this type of work, to be able to have these type of projects that are so important to neighborhoods, and without them, this wouldn't be possible. So thank you, and I appreciate you considering this ordinance this evening.
Are there comments from my council colleagues? Councilmember Michael Stenziano.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. Very similar comments. I want to thank you for your leadership, helping the body navigate through the capital improvement budget. Also, since it will be the last one we have under the leadership of Mr. Dorian, thank you and your staff for helping guide us through the process, and as mentioned, putting the package together. The administration and their leadership, as someone who chairs utilities, get excited when you see additional funding for streetlights and the important role that's going to have for neighborhoods. And really that theme of neighborhoods, 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 the additional URIF funding that's going to go out, specific projects that neighborhoods are going to be looking for, their leadership really is going to have an impact. And again, to the voters for putting us in this position. Having been in other offices where you didn't quite have as much opportunity and flexibility with the budget, really appreciate everyone's collaborative effort. So thank you again to you and your team, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Brown. Mitchell Brown.
President Pro Tem Tyson, I'd also like to echo the comments by Councilmember Stenziano, but most importantly, again, this will be the last capital budget for Mr. Dorian, and we all owe him a debt of gratitude for the many, many, many years that he has helped put together these types of budgets, and I certainly appreciate it, and without question appreciate your leadership in making this all happen. So, Mr. D, thank you. It is appreciated.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Well, again, I would like to thank council and their staff for working on this capital budget. I also want to thank Mr. Dorian. Just thank you so much. I want to thank the mayor and his administration. Certainly want to thank all the city departments who worked on this and all the directors who came to the hearing, but also those who may not have been able to come to the hearing, but certainly sent their representatives, and just thank you for that. I want to thank Joe Lombardi, just appreciate working with him on this budget, as well as you, Rob Newman and Kyle Seifert, who worked diligently on preparing this budget. Again, I want to thank the Legislative Research Office of Council. I want to thank Matt Erickson. I also want to thank Nicole Harper and Carl Williams, as well as, again, the residents of our city who allow us to do this work each and every day and certainly give us their input on how we should make investments into our community. So thank you to all. And with that, I would like to move for passage. Thank you. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. All right. Councilmember Elizabeth Brown, the floor is yours for your legislation.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. Tonight in Administration Committee, excuse me, we have one ordinance, Ordinance 1326-2017, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $25,000 within the Jobs Growth Subfund for the Small Business Training Services Program, to authorize and direct the Director of the Department of Human Resources to implement the Small Business Training Services Program, and to declare an emergency. As I talk a little more detail about this, can Chris Cannon-Jackson please come up to the podium? Thank you. Ms. Cannon-Jackson is the training coordinator for us here at the city. Columbus's small business are critical to the success of our economy, and this program is a simple yet effective way to support local businesses. The Small Business Training Service Program is offered at no cost to employers and provides computer and other business-related training for their employees they may not have been able to otherwise provide. This program started as a pilot in 2013 and has continued since through funding provided by City Council. To date, 99 employers have enrolled in the program and more than 500 training courses have been completed. That is in part due to the efforts of Ms. Cannon-Jackson and the rest of the wonderful staff that Director Nikki Brandon oversees. So I want to thank the Department of Human Resources. I also want to thank Councilmembers Hardin, Page, and Klein, who helped resource this ordinance to make sure it was possible. So Ms. Cannon-Jackson, before I move for passage, I was wondering if you could provide us a view into all this great work with 99 employers and 500 training courses and how that's part of the small business network here in Columbus.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much, Councilmember Brown and President Pro Tem Tyson, for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak here today. I just wanted to give you some update. First of all, we thank you also for the continued support to citywide training and just all of our initiatives. And like you said, since the inception in 2013, we have offered this small business training program. It's allowed us to enhance our community by offering these classes, which otherwise would be cost prohibitive to small businesses, for them to allow to their own professional development. And actually to date, it's 104 different small businesses and companies. And we've had more than 547 actual course completions that have taken place by employees of small businesses. And our top courses are, of course, our Microsoft Office classes. Those are the most popular. But then there's also leadership and supervisory training skills that they ask for, communication classes, business writing, even social media branding to help even spread their business that much more. And these classes, for example, are, like our computer class, for example, is $136, whereas in some of our competitors, it's over $300 for the exact same class. So we're making sure that it's also a wise use of all of those funds that you've been able to give us. And so once again, we thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Yes, President Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilmember Elizabeth Brown. And I just want to say thank you to Chris and certainly the Department of Human Resources. This is what happens when we as a body come together and when we were focused on small businesses. And so that the outgrowth of the growth of this program was, as a body, we were knowing that there was more work that needed to be done with small businesses. And based upon the committees of council, we ended up having groups of small businesses work with the council members and to share with us what they needed. And so when they shared with us that they needed additional training, and we thought, well, this would be great if we could work with our human resource department and to have these businesses that had under 50 people to be able to come and utilize the wonderful training skills of our human resources. And so I'm so thankful that also my colleagues have all, again, all of us were supporting the legislation, but certainly the three that are putting additional dollars here. But that's the beauty of a body coming together and thinking about, when we think collectively, what can we do? So I'm so happy that the businesses are continuing to utilize this, this wonderful benefit. And thank you, Councilmember Brown, for having this legislation, and Councilmember Page and Councilmember Shannon Hardin for putting this forward. It's really important, and thank you.
And thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson, for that being a part of that pilot in 2013 that was so important to launching this. So thank you very much. All right. Any other questions or comments? I move for passage.
Second. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Ordinance is passed.
That is all I have in my committees, President Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. Our next committee is the Small and Minority Business Development Committee, and it's chaired by Councilmember Shannon Harden. The floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. This evening in Small and Minority Business Development Committee, we have Ordinance 1269-2017 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a contract with the Community Capital Development Corporation for the purpose of underwriting and servicing new loans from the cash on hand and to proceed in the proceeds of the revolving loan fund and to declare an emergency. This ordinance specifically continues the city's relationship with the Community Capital Development Corporation to underwrite and service loans in the Economic Development Loan Program, which consists of the Business Development Fund Loan Program and the Working Capital Fund Loan Program, a relationship that is now over 13 years. For this specific legislation, no new funds are appropriated, as the program is a revolving loan fund for over $300,000 for small businesses. But I wanted to take the time to highlight that CCDC is part of the ecosystem that Council funds for small businesses, as an ecosystem that includes Finance Funds Administration of the city's Small Business Revolving Loan Fund and ECDI's administration of the Micro Enterprise Revolving Loan Program. Both funds loan out over $250,000 respectively. All three organizations' proceeds from the low interest loans go back into the loan funds to help more community-based businesses grow and thrive in our city. Like I said, this is part of a larger ecosystem that allows us to engage and to loan out money to small businesses. And a lot of folks ask, how do we engage and how do we support? One way is through development's good work in creating these revolving loan funds that really take care of businesses from as small as startup loans for $5,000 and $10,000 all the way up to emergency gap funds for like Jenny's Ice Cream when they had issues a couple of years back. So if there are no questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Ordinance is passed.
Thank you so much, President Pro Tem. That's all I have in my committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Harden. We'd now like to move to the Recreation and Parks Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Jiza Page. The floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. I have Ordinance 0970-2017 to authorize the transfer of funds within the Recreation and Parks Voted Bond Fund, to authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into contract with Riley and Associates for improvements to the Westgate Recreation Center HVAC system, to authorize the expenditure of $67,483 with a contingency of $1,517 for a total of $69,000 from the Recreation and Parks Voted Bond Fund to waive the competitive procurement provisions of the Columbus City Code and to declare an emergency. With this ordinance, we will be able to make some improvements to the HVAC system at Westgate. They have some insulation problems. In some rooms it's really cold, other areas the air is really humid, and just to make sure that we're getting that together prior to what we know is going to be a very hot summer. So Deputy Director Rakowski, do you have any additional comments?
Chair Page, President Pro Tem Tyson, members of council. Just speaking to the bid waiver quickly, it's Riley does all the controls at our rec centers that have air conditioning, and that's why we're waiving to go with Riley, because they're very familiar with the control systems.
Thank you. If there are no further questions or comments, I move for passage.
Second. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Ordinance is passed.
And then my second piece, which I am co-sponsoring with Councilmember Stenziano, 0973-2017, to authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into contract with McDaniels Construction Corporation Incorporated for the first phase of construction to renovate and return water to the Franklin Park Cascades, to authorize the expenditure of $323,000 from the Recreation and Parks Fund, to waive the competitive procurement provisions of the Columbus City Code, and to declare an emergency. Deputy Director, do you have any additional comments?
Chair Page, President Pro Tem Tyson, members of council, I would just say that the sub on this project had not made their way through the responsible contracting procedure and down in finance with, and I want to thank Sherry Hall down there because they had just made a mistake and thought that their contract compliance application served as their application for that other program. They have gone through that, and I can say that as of May 8th, they were deemed a responsible contractor. So even though we asked for the waiver, they have made it through the program, and they are a responsible contractor under the city's code.
Thank you, Director. Councilmember Stenziano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think as council members, we always hear when fountains don't work or there's problems in parks, and so really appreciate the department's leadership to get this done as quickly as possible in your leadership, Madam Chair. I've heard numerous times of concerns of what's going on in our fountain, when is it going to get fixed, so glad that this begins that process.
Thank you. If there are no additional comments, I move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Ordinance is passed.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. That's all I have.
Thank you. The next committee is the Public Utilities Committee. It's chaired by Councilmember Michael Stenziano. Mr. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. Tonight in Public Utilities, bring forward Ordinance 0942-2017 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into an engineering agreement with Chester Engineers for the Scioto Main Large Diameter Condition Assessment Project, to authorize the expenditure of $1,171,464.74 from the Sanitary Sewer General Obligation Bond Fund and declare an emergency. This project will extend the remaining useful life of the most critical sewers within the city by making necessary replacements. It will also lower operation and maintenance costs by increasing the pipe flow efficiency. It will help reduce the risk of collapse, which could cause sanitary sewer overflows to adjacent waterways or waters and basement. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Ordinance is passed.
The next ordinance is 1292-2017 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to modify and increase an existing contract with Rama Consulting for the Blueprint Columbus Community Outreach Project, to authorize the transfer within of $269,113.03 and the expenditure of up to $367,756.80 and funds from the Sanitary Sewer General Obligation Bond Fund 6109 to amend the 2017 capital improvements budget and to declare an emergency. The Blueprint Columbus Community Outreach consists of community education designed to help facilitate community understanding of Blueprint projects. If you've ever been to one of the open houses, lots of questions that get answered and a lot of wonderful outreach. This is the second year of the planned 3-year outreach effort as we continue to implement our project Blueprint. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Ordinance is passed.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Councilman Stenziano. I now want a motion to adjourn. Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. We have several non-agenda speakers that we will take momentarily, and we will reconvene at 6:30 for zoning. Regular meeting number 26 will now come to order. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
We'll now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Page chairs that committee. All members serve on the committee. Can I get a motion? Oh, Councilmember Page, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. Before beginning the zoning agenda, I'll briefly explain the rules of council as pertaining to speaking before council on zonings and variances. We permit 3 speakers on each side, 3 proponents and 3 opponents, and we ask that they limit their remarks to 3 minutes on each side, and we provide an opportunity for rebuttal from the applicant. On the advice of the City Attorney's Office, we ask that anyone here this evening who wishes to speak either for or against any council variance, including staff, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. I swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Please answer, I will. Thank you. Our first variance this evening, 1159-2017, to rezone 1158 West 3rd Avenue, 43212, being approximately 0.82 acres located at the northeast corner of West 3rd Avenue and Virginia Avenue, from CPD Commercial Plan Development District to CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant is Robert E. Caudy. The proposed use is a building expansion and patio addition. The City Department's recommendation is approval. Fifth by Northwest Area Commission's recommendation is approval. Are there any additional comments from staff? Is the applicant present? Would you like to make any additional comments? Thank you. If there are no further questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Thank you. Ordinance is passed.
Variance 1171-2017, to grant a variance from the provisions of Section 3356.03 C4 permitted uses of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 257 East 11th Avenue, 43201, to permit construction of a single-unit dwelling in the C4 Commercial District. The applicant is Derek Haber. The proposed use is a single-unit dwelling. The City Department's recommendation is approval. University Area Commission's recommendation is approval. Are there any additional comments from staff? Is the applicant or the applicant's representative present? No. All right. There is a motion to amend this to emergency. I would first move to amend to emergency.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Amended to emergency.
And I now move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Harden, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Ordinance is passed.
1183-2017, to grant a variance from the provisions of Sections 3332-039 R4 Residential District, 3321.05B2 Vision Clearance, 3321.07B Landscaping, 3332.25B Maximum Side Yards Required, 3332.26C3 Minimum Side Yard Permitted, 3332.27 Rear Yard, 3372.541 Landscaped Area and Treatment, 3372.542 Maximum Lot Coverage, 3372.543 Building Lines, 3372.544 Maximum Floor Area, and 3372.545 AB Heights of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 1436 Indianola Avenue, 43201, to allow 9 apartment units within an existing building with reduced development standards in the R4 residential district. The applicant is Likens Companies. The proposed use is apartment units. The City Department's recommendation is approval. University Area Commission's recommendation is approval. Are there any additional comments from staff? Thank you. Is the applicant present or the applicant's representative? Thank you. Representative Perry, I believe there's a request to amend to emergency. Could you please explain why briefly? Thank you.
Good evening, all members of City Council. My name is Dave Perry. I'm the agent for the applicant on this variance request. Similar to what you heard last week, we have a former church building that as the congregation has moved on, and the building is proposed to be converted to 9 apartments. And the reason for the emergency request is just the construction schedule. The building permit drawings have been reviewed and approved by Building Services. The site compliance plan will be approved shortly with your approval of the variance ordinance tonight, and the difference is bringing apartments online in mid-October versus mid-November.
Thank you. Are there, yes, Councilmember Mitchell Brown?
Yeah, would you please elaborate on what says reduced development standards? What reduced development standards are we talking about?
This is a very interesting situation, Councilman Brown. The church building was built in 1920 area and has been zoned in several different categories by the city since 1920, and then most recently the R4 district, and then about 1990 the university planning overlay was applied to the university area. So we have a building that covers close to 100% of the parcel that doesn't comply with the zoning district or the university planning overlay. Of the 9 variances that are cited in the ordinance, 8 of them are to conform the existing property to the current code standards. The only, you're granting all the variances, but the real variance is the use for 9 apartments in the R4 district. The rest of it are all existing conditions.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. Are there any additional questions or comments? Thank you. I would first like to move to amend to emergency.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Amended.
And I now move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Ordinance is passed.
And our final variance, 1186-2017, to grant a variance from the provisions of sections 3332, 033, R2 Residential District, and 3312, 49C, minimum numbers of parking spaces required of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 2764 Natalia Drive, 43232, to permit a shared living facility with a maximum of 10 residents in an existing dwelling with reduced parking requirements in the LR2 Limited Residential District. The applicant is New Life Group Home. The proposed use is a shared living facility. The City Department's recommendation is approval. East Haven Civic Association's recommendation is approval. Are there any additional comments from staff? Is the applicant present and would like to make any additional comments? Thank you. Are there any comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Ordinance is passed.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. That's all we have in zoning this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Page. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Clerk, call the roll.
Brown, Brown, Hardin, Page, Stenziano, President Pro Tem Tyson.
We stand adjourned.